Welcome to From Barrier to Breakthrough with Jamie Adele Wood and Tara Riggs, the podcast where we explore life's toughest challenges and how God works through them to bring transformation, healing, and growth. Each week, we'll sit down with incredible guests who have faced barriers in their faith, relationships, and personal journeys, but through God's grace, found breakthrough. So whether you're struggling with doubt, fear, loss, or simply seeking hope, we believe these stories will inspire you to keep moving forward.
If you enjoy the transformation stories we're sharing, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps others discover the podcast and join this community of hope and healing. Let these breakthroughs inspire your own journey of transformation. Click the link in the show notes to order the book From Barrier to Breakthrough and dive even deeper into these powerful lessons we're discussing. Hey friends, we're so glad you're joining us for another episode. Today, we're diving into chapter 5 of the book, where we tackle the barrier of performance. And wow, this one really hits home.
In a world that tells us our worth is tied to what we achieve, it's easy to fall into the trap of performance-based worth. We start believing that if we don't perform perfectly, whether at work, in relationships, or even in ministry, then we're not enough.
This chapter is all about learning to let go of the idea that we have to earn God's love or approval. Instead, it's about resting in the truth that we are enough just as we are. Our two guests today, Hannah and Bobby, each bring a unique perspective on this struggle. Jamie, why don't you introduce us to Hannah's story?
Hannah's journey with performance-based worth is one that so many of us can relate to. She struggled with perfectionism, believing that if she wasn't perfect, she wasn't worthy of love or acceptance, even from God. In her story, Hannah shares how these feelings of unworthiness weighed heavily on her heart, but also how God began to rewrite that narrative. Let's hear more from our special conversation with Hannah.
So sometimes the barrier of performance can look like people-pleasing. It's all of the things that we do to try to earn the approval and the love of other people. And then sometimes that can creep into our relationship with God, that we think that we have to be a certain way in order to please God, that we don't understand the full height and depth and breadth of his love and his grace towards us, right? And so we can get caught up in this kind of performing for God too. And I was wondering if you could kind of speak to, Hannah, when have you come up against this barrier? What has the barrier of performance looked like in your life?
Barrier performance has looked like spreading my time too thinly for other people because I thought if I did this for them, it would make me look good and essentially make God look good because I'm a follower of God. So if I'm good, then obviously God's good. And that turned into resentment super quickly. And it turned into me being burnt out, and me having a bad attitude. And God does not sacrifice, but with a joyful heart, doing it angrily or upset, you might as well not do it at all. And that's where I've struggled. And honestly, the performance thing, I was doing that a lot up until in small group when I met you, Tara, and you, Tara, and you showed me the difference between who God is now, and how he is loving and gentle. And in that, and not condemning in that, it released me from being a people pleaser to where having a boundary is okay. And it doesn't say that I love someone less or that I'm a bad follower of Christ because I'm saying no. It means hey, I care about my relationship with God. And if I'm going to do something for him, I want to make sure I'm doing it in the right heart because he's not going to bless a bad attitude, And I want his actual will to be done, not just my pride or whatever, because I think I'm going to get a praise from somebody for doing it, So that's something I really did deal with a lot before we talked in that small group, especially with what I went through with the shame of the acts that I had done in secret. I was very much more performing for God. And it was just such a perverse way, because that's not who he is. That's not what he wants. He can perform very well on his own. He doesn't need us. So
Yeah.
I just
Yeah. He's
getting to know him's been great.
mm, yeah, he's got this, right? Like I love what and you said that earlier too, right? That like he doesn't need our performance. And I think I'm curious as you have sat with your own like that tendency to spread yourself too thin in order to kind of look good and make God look good, right? Which those things I think we can all relate to that. It feels so relatable. I think we've all been there and done that, right? I'm curious, like, what are you aware of in your own heart and your own story that you feel like maybe drove some of that for you, Hannah? What was performance really trying to do for you?
I believe performance was trying to get me clean because I felt so dirty. I think that is really where that stems from. It's just wanting to be clean, having a good reputation because I had, even though nobody knew it, I had completely drug my own reputation through the mud. You know, I wore his name places I never should have been, uh, and I was trying to make up for it. That's where that came from.
I think that resonates so deeply, Hannah, with so many people that we feel condemned. You've used that word so many times, right? We feel guilty. We feel ashamed. We feel condemned. And my only way out of this deep, dark pit is to perform my way out of it, right? I have to climb my way. I've got to claw my way out of this pit. And I have to prove that I'm worthy of his love. I have to prove that I'm not as dirty as I feel. That is so relatable. I know I have been there. I have felt that. And I think the difficult part of that, and I think maybe we talk about this a bit in the book, is that is an exhausting process, right? When we feel so guilty and so ashamed and so burdened by our own bad choices, sinfulness, whatever it is, that we try to climb our way out, but like our legs begin to shake and our arms can't hold our weight. And inevitably we fall into the bottom of that pit. And it's like, I can't keep it up, God. I'm not good enough. And then it's like shame gets heaped on top of more shame, gets heaped on top of more shame because I can't keep it up. I can't be good enough to earn your love. Right.
Yep.
And that's the whole heart. That's the whole heart of this chapter is that you don't have to. That's what an encounter with the living God tells us, is that it actually isn't about anything that we do for him, that it is by his grace that we're saved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's his love that is lavish on us, that draws us into him, and that we don't have to be too good. There's nothing we could do to be too good or too bad, right? We've got the Pharisee on one side and the tax collector on the other. There's no amount of pride, no amount of shame that could keep us out of God's love. Right? We are living our lives from his love, not for his love. And I wonder, Anna, if you could maybe talk a little bit about what that was like for you. Like, as I see you shaking your head as I'm talking, how exhausting that is, right? Like, what was that like for you to kind of live in a place of like, I'm going to farm myself out of this. I'm going to try to scrub myself clean with my good works, right? With my performance.
Yeah. No, it's fighting a losing battle, right? Like you're fighting against the wind at that point. Like for me, I would liken it's like surfing when it's just a really bad day and the current's pulling you one way. You're trying and trying and trying to go nowhere, because it's not by like your might and your understanding and your strength, but it's by God, his spirit, his knowledge, his love, his forgiveness. You're going to get exhausted. It's tiring because you're constantly fighting for something and you're going nowhere. So you're just like going against the wind, going against the current. There's nothing you can do. You're putting all your might into it, but it's just a losing battle. And eventually you're going to like give up and it's going to sweep you away. And a lot of times that'll happen. And you try so hard to perform for God. And like, for example, I'd gone to like this prayer night thing and I felt so dirty sitting in the church where it was like a place, it was a night where it was about healing and getting free from things. And the minister was going around praying for people. I felt so uneasy in myself and I felt so ashamed. And I'm like, God, this was recent. This was like a couple weeks ago. I was like, God, I don't even deserve to sit here. I'm so filthy. I'm disgusting. All these people, they haven't done what I've done. I'm the worst sitting here. Like, I need to leave. And I got up and left, literally got up and left because I felt like so like swept away by the current of me trying so hard to be good and performing, and it wasn't good enough. And I was around people that I thought were like good enough, and it took me, and it was like a self-loathing, and I got into like a really, really quick spout of like suicidal and depression. But God had to like really firmly talk to me and be like, hold on a second, you know, are you doing these things anymore? And he had to check me, but lovingly, but he had to correct me because I got swept away, but he lifted up and took me out of the current, and he humbled me, you know, where it was like, yeah, it's not about you. Like, it's not about what you can do. Like, I love you and I forgive you. We just got to be better. We just got to do better. It's kind of like the woman that was caught in adultery, and Jesus like picked her up and he was like, go and sin no more, you know? When I read that, I interpret it as like him not saying like go and just be perfect and sinless, because he knows humans. He knows that we're going to sin. But the sin doesn't have to be the same sin. When he's already saved you from one thing, you don't have to go and do that same thing again. You're going to fall, obviously, but you're going to get back up with his help. And that's where I was at, where I was like, oh, I'm just not good enough. So now I am going to go be bad. You know, forget me, God, just leave me to die. I'm going to ruin my life now. And he didn't let me, you know, he kept me and he talked to me through it. And he really did. He was just like back and forth in my mind, talking to me and regrounding me. But it's exhausting because you're never going to ever reach that threshold, you think, because we all have sinned. We all fall short. So that like hole where you're like trying to be clean, you can be clean. It's not by your own. It's by the blood of Jesus. So that need you have can be filled. You're just doing it the wrong way. And if you continue, you're going to fall into it even more, because that's what happened with me, you know? Pride comes before destruction. Pride says, I can make myself clean. No, you cannot, you know? So that's where I was at. Yeah.
And it's such a reminder at how tempting it is to pick up the mask again, right? The one that God has peeled off of us and said, you are not that. You are not your performance. But as soon as we get uncomfortable or the enemy brings that up as temptation, it's so easy to want to hide behind that mask that we've allowed the Lord to peel off of us, because it's more vulnerable. And I think takes a measure of humility to stand in the presence of the God feeling naked, right? And saying, exposed, this is who I really am. Are you sure that you love me? Are you sure that you're sure I don't have to? And we can fall back into that temptation. And so I think what you've done is help normalize that it's not a one and done battle. I mean, maybe it is in some areas, but more often than not, I think our old man, you know, the inner sin nature wants to keep pulling that mask up and hiding behind it. And I'm wondering if you would take us to that moment, because it sounds like you found a great deal of freedom about 7 months ago, is what I'm hearing in your story, to that time that you first realized that God told you you could lay down the mask, that you are not your performance. And I'm wondering if you would sit in that emotion with God and describe to us what it felt like to be freed from a lifetime of having to perform and be robotic and try to anticipate everyone's needs and feel like you can only be okay when everyone else around you is okay. You know what I mean?
It's such a tough question. That's such a good question. That's such a tough question, because it's like the moment when I felt like I could take that mask off. I think the moment I felt like I could take the mask off was the first night away, I think, you know, from my abuser. I think that was the moment where I felt like I could take my mask off and just kind of sit with everything that had happened, everything that I had done, everything that was done, and to kind of like know that's about to be a part of the story. So I kind of had to be comfortable with all of that darkness and just know that that's not the end, that though all this terrible dark stuff just happened, that God can make it a lot better, but it is going to take a lot of exposing what had happened and talking about it and being open to share like my part in it to have something beautiful be able to come out of it. Because what I've done, like a lot of the stuff I've done was like super shame filled. So I want to hide. I don't want to confess it to anybody. Like nobody needs to know that at all. But there isn't really any healing in that because all of that stuff was for nothing if nobody can benefit from it, you know? And so the moment where I finally could like lay my head down and I wasn't worried anymore and I felt at peace, I felt like, okay, God, like, you know me, you know what I've done, and I'm so sorry, but you're giving me this peace. So obviously you still have love for me. I obviously still have favor with you, you know, if I'm able to experience something good after something so dark and ugly that I had been a part of, you know, like, and what I attributed to you and stuff, you know, like he still showed me that little bit of loving, gentle kindness. And that was when I felt safe enough to be able to be like, all right, this is going to be a hard journey, but I can be open with you, Lord. And I don't have to be super ashamed of everything. And it will be a part of my story and I will have to tell it for people. Um, but ultimately, if you're not upset with me, you're not displeased with me anymore, like I can handle that, you know? So I can handle what people are going to say or whatever about the story where I felt shame and I wanted to hide it all. I have like a peace for that because I just know like I've been vulnerable with God and he's who made me, he's taught me mainly that nothing catches him off guard. So everything I've done, he saw that. Like when he created me when I was 5 years old, reading my Bible and I was as pure as could be, he knew exactly what I was going to do to kind of ruin that self-image of being like a childlike, pure person. And yet he loves me just as much, you know, if not more, because, you know, when you go through hard things and you still are with God, I think he loves that, right? He loves it when you haven't had an easy life and you don't come at him and like say this is your fault, but you come at him like, Lord, I love you and you love me, so we'll get through it together. So maybe he loves me a little bit more than as a kid, 'cause I didn't know the darkness where I could run to him, but now I know the darkness and I know to run to him. And I think he loves that. So I think that's what's made me feel like I could take off my mask. Again, such a long explanation, but I had to work through that because that was good questions, you know? And
Yeah, great job, Hannah. Great job.
I appreciate Hannah and your story as we're kind of, if we just like zoom out into your story a little bit, like I just appreciate the humility of there's no good that I could do to earn God's love and there's no bad that I could do to earn God's love, right? Like that's what I'm hearing you say. Like you said I tried to like perform my way into like God's good grace. But it wasn't first of all, it never felt like it was enough, right? I always felt dirty at the end of it no matter how hard I tried. And and then also like so it didn't work in that way. And it was only in allowing yourself to come to God empty, right? Like I'm not dirty, I'm not clean, right? Like not identifying with your dirtiness, not identifying with your goodness. But it's like when you were able to approach the Lord just like I'm just me. I'm just me.
yeah,
That you were able to receive his grace in the places that you needed it most. Right. So it's like there was part of it that like I appreciate what you're saying, the way that like feeling dirty and feeling ashamed, much like the tax collector, it's like he couldn't even receive the grace of God because the shame was keeping God the grace out. Right. It was keeping the love out because he felt like he was dirtier than what God had the ability to love. And then you've got the tax collector, like, and we're on a pendulum, don't we do both of these things? Then you've got the tax collector that's like, God, have you seen how awesome I am? You know what I mean? He's basically like, I got it all right. Thank God that I'm not like that guy. Right. And like how easily we can all walk through life thanking God that we're not like somebody else. And yet I appreciate in your story the way that you're saying, like, there is no good that I can do and there is no bad that I can do that is going to change God's love for me. And you have lived that. Yeah.
I'm thankful for it because it's been a very interesting, but like I love the life that he's allowed me to live, because all of these lessons I'm learning, like I can't describe it, but I really wouldn't change anything that I've been through at all. Because to to know the good, you have to go through the bad. And I know how good God is. Like, I just know how good he is, no matter what. Even if he doesn't, right? Even if he doesn't, like the boys said before they were thrown in the fire, he's still God. He's still good and he's still loving. So there's no one better to trust than God.
Hannah's story really speaks to that inner pressure we feel to get everything just right. It's exhausting trying to meet expectations we were never meant to carry. But her testimony shows us that God isn't asking for perfection. He's asking for presence. Bobby's story offers another side of the performance barrier. After losing his church and spiraling into addiction, Bobby found himself trying to prove his worth through success in business and ministry. He thought that if he could just perform well enough, he'd earn his way back to a sense of value. But God had a different plan, one that didn't depend on Bobby's achievements. Let's hear about his powerful journey. As we've been having this conversation today, I have heard you several times use the phrase people pleasing. And so if I had to guess, I'm wondering that that's maybe what performance has looked like for you. That's kind of the way that you battle performance in your own life. And I'm wondering if you can just say a little bit more about like, what's the impact of people pleasing on you? How does that affect you?
It's exhausting and it feeds the flesh in a sense, and you're already like starting off in a hole of something that you can't ever climb out of, because some people you just can't make happy, just being honest. And, because only God can make them happy. But, growing up and coming where I come from, it was all about you looking like you got it all figured out and performing in the sports, and like, it's just a lie. The big lie that it caused, to go down this rabbit hole all the time, and you would exhaust, and then you would have secret sins, and then you would end up here, you'd just constantly be in this hamster wheel of it's just a trap and a form of bondage, and just have to be very open and careful of. And that's surrounding myself with people that I can be open and honest with, and realize my job is just to stay surrendered to him and allow him working on me, and being cautious of that for sure, because it's a trap.
And I'm hearing that it's not like new as an adult. Like what I'm hearing is like you've been kind of like raised
Absolutely.
in people pleasing. Yeah. You're saying there was a lot of pressure. Can you say a little bit?
Like I was single mama raised with two little sisters. And so I had no example of a father. And then I had to be like the man of the house when I had no example of what to be like, except what I learned from around me that probably wasn't the best example, so I was always had that pressure of trying to be something that I didn't even know how to be, had no example of how to be it. And so it was constantly having my, eyes on people. Well, a man should work like this, and he should act like this, or he should do this, or he shouldn't do that, and then even when I got saved and filled with the Holy Spirit, I was watching men of God, what they do and how they carried themselves, because I had no example in the household. And so it was, and I would get very frustrated because I'm like, God, why did you create me to be a man and give me no father, no example on how to be this, to raise my kids, to love them? And then I begin to see that it's because some examples, sometimes no example is better than a bad example. And God would begin to show me is that, I can teach you how to do this if you'll get in my word. Because like David had a father, but he didn't even recognize him to call him out of the field to be anointed. So he must have not been there that much, because he forgot he was even out there. So that is something that I have looked back on, or kind of related with, that, just like he came to him, I can come to him. And it was a lonely place, because it was just me and God, and I was trying to learn how to hear him and be led, and what does the word say, and also getting the team challenge. That's when I really, begin to learn what a godly man should look like, how he should carry himself, how he should take it's the little things that matter the most, that you do in an excellent way. And so it was, I've struggled that my entire life, and it was probably a lot of the cause that kept me in secrecy, kept me hidden, because I was caring so much about what people thought, that if I was open and honest about who I am 90% of the time, they're going to banish me like a leper, like it's not going to go well. And that's what kept me in probably 8 years of addiction that I could have got free from a lot quicker if I would have, knew that. I'm just being honest. Like I didn't even know no other way but living that way, at the time.
I want to hone in on people pleasing because I think there's a huge population of people that can identify with that. And I know you were raised in it, but something within you gave it power to exist, right? And to perpetuate inside yourself. And I'm wondering, what was the felt need that you were going after that allowed people pleasing to rule in your life? What were you trying to meet within yourself? And then what freed you from that? What allowed you to find out that performance wasn't where your worth was in? People pleasing didn't hold your true value.
Probably what held me there was pride and ego and trying to, I'm big and I'm this and I'm making that money and in trying to portray what society would say is acceptable or what a man should look like and, what his value is based on what he does or don't do and what he has. And then the other side of it was realizing that I was never going to be enough. I was never going to be able to be enough to be what they wanted me to be. And I was killing myself. I was literally exhausting myself and destroying my own life, losing my kids, losing everything by trying to carry on this persona of looking like when I had it all together, when I didn't. And it was literally robbing everything from me into where I literally just said, I can't do this no more because it's not worth it. It's not even working. It's just keeping me bound and broken and being willing to just give up and realize that, I tried it my own way and I ended up in a ditch every time. And I was tired of being that way. You just get tired of being sick and tired, as they would say. And just my only other option was to give up, and do the opposite of what I had been doing. So
How key in your story, like that there's this little boy. I can see where it all started for you, right? There's this little boy who was given a way too big a title, way too big a job, right? Like your head was not big enough to fit the crown that someone had put on it, right? To be the man of the house. And what I hear is that you were trying to fill that role in a ton of different ways: sports, ministry, job, money, right? All of these different things is like, it still feels like there's this little boy who's just trying to like fit into his dad's big shoes and big pants, right? That just won't fit no matter how hard he tries. And the way that you just like chased that and chased that and chased that, right? I will be the man. I will figure it out. Even if it's disintegrating my soul on the inside, I am going to exhaust myself striving to be something that everyone else is telling me that I need to be. Meanwhile, my inner man is wasting away. I'm battling secret sin and I can't confess it. And I'm just like bound up in this like aloneness, right? The like so alone with your own sinfulness and your own weakness and your own hurts, right? And like vulnerability and like that fatherlessness, like that fatherlessness that goes deep. It runs so deep. And all of the ways that you used the word earlier, the void, right? All the ways that you were trying to fill that dad void. And you were trying to figure out what that looked like and how to be that. And it was only once you found your heavenly Father and he said, I will show you how, that you were finally able to like step out of the performance and the people pleasing, right? It was only once you found your heavenly Father and, like you said, and some good godly men into challenge, that you kind of maybe felt some permission to like, I don't have to have all of those models of what fatherhood should look like for me or what manhood should look like for me. But God's going to show me the man he made me to be. And I just wonder, what is it like on this side of that barrier as you have stopped all of that performing, all of that people pleasing, all of that trying to fit into your daddy's shoes,
I think the way I'd best explain it is that it shifted from trying to please him than to honor him. So it shifted. I know he loves me. I know he's for me. His faithfulness and pulling me out of where he brought me from is proven. It's facts. Like it's written, in a sense. And so now it's shifted from that to, okay, how can I get up each day and honor him with how much he has shown his love on me, how much he has healed me, how much he has blessed me with, and living from a place of knowing that now, because I did everything I could do to try to achieve the dream and try to build this thing, and it didn't work, and I failed miserably. But now I'm understanding I was trying to build without him, and that if I would just surrender my heart, my life to him, he has built so much better for me than I ever could have done myself. And it lives with a place of, there's just a freeing peace in it, is that I don't have to figure this out. Like, all I have to do is just say, God, I need you. I can't do this without you. Please speak to me, lead me. And I just don't move till he does. Yeah, I just don't until he does. And then I move, and then I make the decision. If I don't, then we're going to chill right here. I'm just not going to try to do this on my own or make something happen that's going to be nowhere near what it can be if I let him do it. It's just, and then you see that a couple wins begin to stack up, then it's like, okay, I just got to do the last thing I did. I'm just going to pray. And when he tells me what to do, I'll do it and then we're just not going to do anything until he tells me to do it. It's just trying to keep it simple and applicable, to where you can make the decisions out of that. It's what's helped me,
Bobby's testimony reminds me that even when we're running on empty, trying to perform our way into worth, God is there, offering rest, not more tasks to complete. Both Bobby and Hannah's stories show us that when we let go of performance, we make room for grace. We learn that our identity isn't tied to what we do. It's rooted in who we are as God's beloved.
What a freeing message today. Performance-based worth is such a heavy burden to carry, but these stories remind us that we don't have to earn love or approval. God's grace says we are enough right where we are.
It's not about proving ourselves. It's about resting in the truth that God's love for us isn't conditional. If today's episode encouraged you, we'd love it if you'd like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more people discover these conversations and find hope in their own journeys.
And if these stories resonate with you, click the link in the show notes to order the book From Barrier to Breakthrough. It's filled with even more insights to help you release the weight of performance and step into the freedom of being fully known and fully loved by God.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Next week, we'll dive into a topic that's close to many hearts: the barrier of silence. Until then, let go of the need to perform, rest in God's grace, and know that you are already enough.